There was a second alarm on her phone I wasn't supposed to see. Not the usual 6:30 a.m. one for work. This one was set for 4:17 a.m. every Tuesday, labeled only with a single red heart emoji. And it was hidden under Archived in her clock app. Who the hell archives alarms? I would have never found it if her screen hadn't lit up while she was in the shower. I wasn't snooping. I was setting up Bluetooth for our new speaker. But something about the red heart made me stop. So I tapped it. And that was the beginning of the end. She came out of the bathroom, steam trailing behind her like some ghost of who she used to be. She saw the screen in my hand. That moment where she froze, just for a blink, then smiled and said, "Oh, that? I think I made that as a joke. You know, Valentine's Day." It wasn't Valentine's Day. It was September. And she never joked like that. I nodded like I believed her, like a good little idiot husband does. But that night, while she was fake snoring beside me, because yes, she fakes snoring now, I opened the backup I'd been keeping for months. I scrolled through deleted texts that even her fancy secure text app couldn't erase completely from the cloud. And there it was. A conversation labeled BK Jim. Brandon again. This guy might as well have his own drawer in our house. Her. Set alarm. Same time. Can't wait. Sweat droplets. Him. Damn. You really gonna sneak out with him next to you? Her. He sleeps like a corpse. He'll never know. No punctuation. No guilt. No hesitation. Just plans. The next morning, I made her eggs. Scrambled soft, the way she likes. Basil from the garden. Coffee in her favorite ceramic mug. I even ironed the sleeves of her blouse while she was still putting on eyeliner. She kissed me on the cheek and said, "You're the sweetest man I know." Sweet. Lady, I'm embalmed. By Thursday, I'd already met with a lawyer and drained half our joint savings. Quietly. Legally. Carefully. Friday, I stayed home from work, pretending to have a fever. She left like always, duffel bag, yoga mat, perfume that wasn't for me. I waited 5 minutes, then followed. Not in a car. Too obvious. I rented a damn electric scooter and tailed her down side streets like I was in some low-budget spy film with a $15 budget. She met him in the alley behind a smoothie place. He grabbed her waist like it was his, and she laughed like I hadn't heard in years. And then she said it. I caught it on audio. Let's not worry. He's still totally clueless. Still. Totally. Clueless. That's what she thought. So the next day, I set the table. Candles. Her favorite playlist. A small envelope under her wine glass, labeled only with her name in gold ink. Inside, copies of texts. Alarm screenshots. A short note. Let him know you'll be free next week. I'll handle the divorce papers. She didn't speak for 10 seconds. Then her voice broke into the silence like glass shattering in a library. Wait, what? She blinked twice. Stared down at the envelope in her trembling hands. Her wine glass sat untouched. The candle between us flickered like it wasn't sure it should stay lit for what was about to come. Wait. What? She finally whispered, just loud enough for me to hear over the soft hum of our favorite song, which, ironically, was still playing in the background. She always said it reminded her of simpler times. Now it just sounded like a lie someone forgot to turn off. I leaned back, calm as I could fake it, and said it again. Tell him you'll be free next week. I'll handle the divorce papers. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Like her brain was buffering, trying to load a version of reality where I didn't know everything. I could see the calculation behind her eyes. She was sifting through options. Deny? Cry? Gaslight me into thinking I misunderstood? Play the mental health card? Beg? Blame? She tried door number 3. You seriously went through my phone? She snapped, folding the envelope with exaggerated care, like it was the offensive part here, not the contents. That's what you're leading with. I laughed bitterly. Not the fact that you've been sneaking out at 4 a.m. for your little gym sessions with Brandon the wellness clown. Her jaw clenched. Her arms crossed like a reflex. This is such a violation. No. You know what's a violation? I interrupted. Reading that you call me a corpse in bed. That I'm so boring, you could commit a felony next to me and I'd still be drooling on my pillow. I didn't mean that, she said quickly, eyes darting everywhere except mine. It was just talk. Do you talk like that to the barista too? Or just the men you sneak into hotel rooms with at sunrise? Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. The kind that builds in your chest and makes your skin feel too tight for your body. Then the tears came. Not the real kind. The kind you squeeze out like a tube of toothpaste, hoping it buys you mercy. Clark, please. We've been distant for months. I didn't want to hurt you. No, you just wanted to bypass hurting me by keeping me dumb and compliant. You wanted the thrill of being desired by someone new, without the guilt of breaking up with someone old. She stood up suddenly, like she couldn't take the conversation sitting down anymore. But I didn't flinch. I had all the power now, and she felt it. For the first time in years, she felt me. You're overreacting, she said, voice trembling, mascara already streaking like it couldn't wait to abandon ship. You're under-apologizing, I replied flatly. Then I pushed the second envelope across the table. What's that? She asked, still standing. I looked her in the eye. Your bank statement. See those charges for hotels, the Lyft rides, the gift shop? I already called our financial advisor. Half that account's mine. I'll be keeping it. And the joint savings? Already gone. Legally. She looked stunned. Genuinely stunned. Like the idea of me taking action had never even crossed her mind. And why would it? I was the guy who watered her plants when she forgot. The guy who made her tea when she had a headache. The guy who always turned the car around when she left her sunglasses at home. She married a golden retriever. Loyal, harmless, always wagging his tail no matter how many times she walked out the door. But not tonight. Tonight, I was the locked door she didn't have a key for anymore. She finally sat back down, slower this time, like gravity had suddenly remembered she existed. Can we just talk? Please? Can we talk before we do something we regret? I stood up. I already did all the regretting, I said. You're just catching up. And with that, I walked upstairs and left her at the table. The untouched wine, the flickering candle, the playlist still playing a love song that didn't belong to us anymore. She didn't come upstairs that night. I heard her pacing the kitchen below like a ghost trying to find a door to walk through. The music had stopped playing long ago, but I imagined she could still hear the echo of my voice telling her to let him know she'd be free next week. At around 2:30 a.m., the kitchen light flipped off. Then the hallway. Then the living room. Every switch sounded like a tiny apology she didn't have the words for. She tiptoed up the stairs like I might be asleep. I wasn't. I was lying in bed, wide awake, eyes on the ceiling, heart not racing anymore. Just numb. Not the clean kind of numb that comes from acceptance. The rotten kind. The kind that feels like mold growing in a crawl space of your chest. She didn't come into the bedroom. She went to the guest room. Closed the door quietly. Didn't even brush her teeth in our shared bathroom. That was the moment I realized something terrifying. She wasn't going to fight for me. No denial. No hysterics. No please, I'll change. Just silence. Just walking away, step by step, with the same detachment you'd show to a plant that stopped blooming. She had already made peace with losing me. She just never expected me to be the one letting go. By morning, she acted like we'd had a minor disagreement over dinner reservations. She avoided my gaze, moved softly, and didn't mention the envelope once. She made herself coffee, didn't offer me any, and pretended her phone wasn't buzzing like a beehive next to the toaster. I watched her from the dining table, thinking, does she even realize it's over? Or is she waiting for me to just forget it happened? I didn't say a word as she grabbed her keys. She paused at the door, probably expecting me to ask where she was going. I didn't, but she told me anyway. I have a work meeting, she said, not looking at me. Work meeting. On a Saturday. At 9:12 a.m. Sure. I nodded. She left. But this time, I didn't stay home. I waited 10 minutes, then opened my notes app. The one I had been updating silently for 2 weeks. Dates. Times. Screenshots. Locations. Every pattern I'd noticed, documented like an accountant of heartbreak. I grabbed my keys and followed her route. Not by car this time. She'd expect that. I took my bike. A dusty blue Trek I hadn't touched in over a year. It squeaked like hell, and the brakes were suicidal, but I didn't care. I had one goal. See what she was doing when she thought I'd given up. She wasn't at work. She wasn't at any office. She was at his building. I knew the code from an old email I found in her drafts. For -1-7-5, the same time as her secret alarm, I realized, with a sick sort of poetic symmetry, she was upstairs for 2 hours. 2 hours. And when she came back down, she wasn't crying. She wasn't panicked. She was smiling. Not the fake smile she used on me, the polite one with dead eyes. No, this was the kind of smile that glows from underneath, the kind I hadn't seen on her face in at least 4 years. Not even at our anniversary dinner. Not even when I surprised her with tickets to Italy. She smiled like she was alive. And that broke something in me I didn't know was still whole. She got in her car, drove home. I waited another 5 minutes before heading back myself. My chest was cold. My fingers were numb on the handlebars. Every breath I took felt like inhaling static. When I walked through the front door, she was already on the couch, pretending to scroll Instagram. "You okay?" she asked casually. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I sat down in the chair across from her, leaned forward, and said quietly, "I followed you." The phone slipped slightly in her hand. Her pupils widened, but she didn't blink. "What? You heard me. You're spying on me now?" she said, going straight into outrage, like she had been saving it in her back pocket for just this occasion. "No," I replied. "I was confirming something I already knew. You just added the final nail." She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I don't know what you think you saw." "You smiled," I interrupted. "That's all I needed to see. You smiled for him. And I don't think you even know you haven't smiled like that at me in years." There was a silence. The kind that hums in your ears like the aftermath of an explosion. Then she said something that chilled me more than the cheating, more than the lies, more than any of it. She said, "It just happened, Clark. I didn't plan this. You stopped seeing me. You made everything feel small." I froze. That was her excuse? I made her cheat? Because I loved her too quietly? Because I didn't make her world feel like fireworks and freefall and daydreams? No, I wouldn't let her rewrite this into some soft betrayal wrapped in poetic nonsense. She didn't fall into his arms. She chose them. And I chose to walk away. And next time, I wouldn't be the one leaving the house. That night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror for almost an hour. Not brushing my teeth. Not fixing my hair. Just staring. There's something that happens when you stare at your own face too long. Like your brain starts glitching. Your reflection starts to look unfamiliar. Alien. I wasn't looking at Clark Wilmer, tax man, dependable husband, nicest guy in the room anymore. I was looking at someone I didn't fully recognize. Someone who'd allowed himself to be erased. Someone who handed his dignity over piece by piece and called it love. The worst part? I still wanted her to beg. Even after the lies, the betrayal, the ghosting of our marriage in real time, some disgusting part of me wanted her to fall apart and fight to keep me. I hated that. I hated that if she had dropped to her knees right then and sobbed. "I made a mistake. Please don't go. I might have cracked." But she didn't. She went to bed early. In our room this time. Not the guest room. She didn't say goodnight. She just pulled the covers over her shoulder and turned her back to the door like the whole thing was a movie she didn't like and wanted to sleep through. I slept on the floor that night. Not because she kicked me out. She never would. No, that would take actual confrontation, and Delaney is a master at avoiding direct fire. I slept on the floor because the bed suddenly felt like a coffin we both pretended was still warm. At 3:42 a.m., I woke up to the sound of her phone buzzing. Repeatedly. A gentle buzz every 30 seconds. 5, 6, 7 times. I stood up slowly, my body stiff, head throbbing, and walked to the dresser where she had left it charging. It was face down, of course, but I didn't touch it. I just looked at it, buzzing in the dark like a dying wasp. I didn't need to see the messages. I already knew who it was. What they said. It would be the same copy-paste lies they whispered to each other every week. Affirmations dipped in perfume and selfishness. I returned to the floor, wide awake. And I began drafting the email. Not to her. Not to Brandon. To her mother. To her father. To her older sister, Megan, who once told me on our wedding night, "If she ever hurts you, you better not go easy on her just because she's pretty." I wrote each of them a polite, measured message. I didn't rant. I didn't curse. I simply explained the facts, attached screenshots, and said I would no longer be part of the family holidays this year. Not because I was bitter, but because I was done pretending. I also attached something else, a short voice recording. Earlier that week, I'd recorded her during one of her late-night phone calls when she didn't realize I was in the hallway, listening through the cracked door of her meditation room. She was laughing with Brandon, telling him how Clark would never find out, and how it was almost sweet how naive he is. I included that audio. Why? Not for revenge, but because I had spent the last year being told I was overthinking everything, that my instincts were flawed, that I was reading too much into her growth phase. I needed someone else to hear it. I needed confirmation that I wasn't crazy. At 5:06 a.m., I hit send. At 5:10, I packed a bag. And at 5:25, I walked into the bedroom, turned on the light, and said quietly, "I'm heading to my brother's for a few days." Delaney sat up fast, startled, eyes puffy. "What? Now?" "Yeah. You're just leaving?" "You left a long time ago," I replied, zipping the bag. "I'm just finally catching up." She threw the covers off. "Clark, wait. Don't make a big scene out of this." I paused. "You think this is a scene?" I walked over to the nightstand, pulled out the framed photo of us from our honeymoon. The one where we were on a beach in Oregon, soaked in rain, kissing like we didn't care. I looked at it for a moment. This was a scene. That was real. I placed it face down. "This is just cleanup." She stood there, barefoot, mascara smudged, hair tangled, completely unprepared for the one thing she never thought I'd do. "Leave first." As I walked down the stairs, she called after me, "You're being dramatic. This doesn't have to end like this." I turned at the bottom step and said, "You're right. It didn't have to, but you made sure it would." And then I closed the door behind me, wondering if she'd chase after me. She didn't. Not that morning. But by the afternoon, she was calling everyone. And the damage had already been done. It started around noon. I was sitting on my brother Micah's back porch, sipping cold coffee and watching his dog dig holes in places he wasn't supposed to. The sky was that kind of dull gray that made you feel like the universe was stuck buffering, and I hadn't slept in over 24 hours. I felt hollow, but weirdly sharp. Like every emotion had been emptied out, and all that remained was clarity, clean and cold. Then my phone buzzed. Megan, Delaney's older sister. The one who never liked me in that obvious, polite way that still stings. The kind of woman who smiled too much when she said your name, but never asked how you were. I almost let it ring out. Almost. But something told me to answer. Her voice was sharp from the first syllable. "Clark, tell me what's going on." No hello. No greeting. Just straight into it. "I'm sure you've seen the email," I said flatly. "I have. And the audio." She went quiet for a moment. I heard kids screaming in the background. Her twins, probably, tearing up the house like usual. Then she said something I'll never forget. "I owe you an apology." I blinked. "What?" "You were always the safe one. Too safe. Too predictable. And we used to joke about that. But you never lied. You never hurt her. And if this is true, all of it, then she's the one who ruined it." I didn't know what to say. I'd expected anger, denial, accusations. Not this. Not respect. "She hasn't told anyone yet," Megan continued. "She's playing dumb. Pretending she's confused. But the audio makes it very clear." "I didn't send it to shame her," I said. "You didn't need to. She did that herself." That one sentence hit harder than I expected. Because no matter how furious I was, there was still a part of me, a loyal part, that hated the idea of people talking about her behind her back. I had spent a decade protecting her name, even when she didn't deserve it. "She needs to grow up," Megan said. "And you need to protect yourself now." Before I could respond, another call came through, this time from a number I didn't recognize. I ignored it. 2 minutes later, a voicemail popped up. I hit play. It was Brandon. His voice was fake calm. That slick, corporate tone you hear from guys who practice speeches in the mirror and think they're good people because they recycle. "Hey, Clark. I think we need to talk. I think there's been a misunderstanding, and I just want to clear the air, man to man." Man to man. I nearly laughed out loud. That's what these guys do. They screw your wife, then try to handle it over a beer like they hit your mailbox, not your marriage. I saved the message. Didn't respond. Instead, I scrolled through my notes app again. Through every piece of evidence. Through the timeline I'd assembled. Something had always bothered me. One small piece of the puzzle that didn't quite fit. A Lyft receipt from 3 months ago. A trip she told me she took alone to think about us. Only, the drop-off address wasn't Brandon's condo. It was another place. A second location. I zoomed in on the receipt. It was a short-term rental address. An Airbnb. But it wasn't just the address that got me. It was the guest name. Reserved under Brandon Kessler. Guests, too. My stomach twisted. Not because she'd lied. I already knew she was capable of that. But because this trip, it wasn't in the pattern. It was off. Out of rhythm. A standalone event that didn't match her usual schedule. So I did what any emotionally shredded man with too much time and nothing to lose would do. I booked the same Airbnb for one night. Under a fake name. just to see it, just to feel what she felt in that space. Micah thought I was nuts. Dude, you're torturing yourself, he said. What are you hoping to find? Blood on the walls? I don't know, I replied honestly. But if I don't go, I'll keep imagining worse. So I went. And what I found wasn't worse. It was stranger. Because someone left something behind. A silk scarf. Delaney doesn't wear scarves. And in the bathroom drawer, a small bottle of men's cologne, not Brandon's usual brand. I'd smelled it before, but not on him. There was another man. Not just Brandon. There had been someone else in this Airbnb. Someone she hadn't told anyone about. That night, I sat on the bed they'd slept in and stared at the ceiling, realizing for the first time that I might not even know who I'd been married to for 10 years. And in that moment, full of shadows, cheap hotel soap, and the smell of someone else's decisions, I understood something terrible. This wasn't about falling out of love. This was something deeper. And I was finally ready to go down the rabbit hole. The next morning, I sat in my car outside the Airbnb for over an hour, staring at that scarf. It was navy blue, silk, and monogrammed with the initials R.H. Whoever he was, he hadn't meant to leave it behind. It was stuffed under the bed frame, not on top, not draped over a chair. Hidden, deliberately, like someone was rushing, careless, maybe paranoid. I kept looking at it like it would open its mouth and explain everything. But it didn't. Just sat there, soft and smug, like it had all the answers and I was too pathetic to ask the right questions. I drove home with it folded in my glove box. Micah wasn't there when I got back. He'd left a note on the counter that said, "Went to get groceries. Please don't go full True Detective on me while I'm out." I wanted to laugh, but my throat was sore from silence. My whole body felt like it had aged 10 years in a week. Like my nervous system was processing grief and fury in background mode, draining my battery with every breath. I opened my laptop and started digging. First into Delaney's old emails, not recent ones, but the archived stuff from before we were married. Back when we used the same shared MacBook. She never deleted anything. She just forgot where it lived. It took less than 10 minutes to find something. A name. Reed Harrison. He showed up in a few college-era threads. Late-night ramblings. Old photos I'd never seen. A blurry pic of her and a guy at some concert. His arm around her waist. Her smile full, genuine, open in a way I hadn't seen on her face in years. I zoomed in. The scarf matched. I felt my hands go cold, the kind of cold that comes from the inside, like the blood knows something your heart hasn't caught up to yet. Reed wasn't new. He was old. He was first. That was the part that shattered me. The idea that maybe Brandon was just the surface-level betrayal. The flashy, in-your-face insult. But Reed? He was the root. The wound that never closed. So I looked deeper. Socials. Private LinkedIn groups. Old Venmo payments. I built a map of her digital footprint with this man, and sure enough, he had resurfaced just over a year ago. Around the time she started saying things like, "I feel like I missed out on something, and do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd married other people?" It wasn't a general nostalgia. It was him. I messaged a college friend of mine, someone who had overlapped with Delaney's graduating year, and asked, point blank, "Do you remember a guy named Reed Harrison?" 10 minutes later, he replied, "Oh yeah, Delaney's almost fiancé." That was when the room started spinning. I had proposed to Delaney in late fall, 2 years after we met. She said yes so fast, I barely got the words out. She cried, hugged me, told me I was her soulmate. Never once did she say she'd almost said yes to someone else before me. Never once mentioned that she'd been engaged in all but paperwork to another man before I came along. Suddenly, all her soul-searching made more sense. She wasn't searching. She was revisiting, trying to see if the life she gave up was still waiting for her, like a dress she left at a dry cleaner and suddenly remembered years later. And me? I was the backup suit. I sat on the edge of the couch and stared at the floor, the weight of a decade collapsing on top of me. My marriage wasn't just ending because of a fling. It wasn't even ending because of Brandon. Brandon was just a distraction, a symptom. It was ending because I was never the man she truly wanted. I was just the man who showed up when the one she really wanted didn't. And now, he was back. I picked up my phone, opened a blank message, typed 3 words I never thought I'd type. "Did you know?" And I sent it to her. No context, no venom, just those 3 words. She responded 30 seconds later. About what? I didn't reply. Instead, I took the scarf out of the glove box, walked to the backyard, and set it on fire in Micah's rusty old grill. The flames danced for a minute, then settled into a quiet smoke that smelled like cologne and regret. And I realized something else in that moment, something final. You don't need a cheating spouse to feel betrayed. Sometimes, just being second choice is enough to destroy you. Delaney showed up at Micah's place that night. I knew she would. I left the scarf burning in the grill on purpose, knowing the smoke would cling to my hoodie, to the air, to the fibers of whatever anger still lived in me. She always hated the smell of burning fabric, said it reminded her of house fires and endings. So I wore that hoodie when I opened the door. She stood there, wearing one of those oversized sweaters that makes women look softer than they really are, like they're shrinking into themselves for sympathy. No makeup, puffy eyes, hair tied back the way she only did when she was too emotionally exhausted to lie convincingly. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there, staring at me with that pleading kind of silence. The kind that says, if I wait long enough, maybe he'll fold. I didn't. Can we talk? She asked quietly, already stepping inside before I answered. I closed the door behind her. She stood in the middle of the living room, scanning the space like she expected to see blood on the walls. You didn't have to send the emails to my family, she started, tone clipped but controlled. That was cruel. No, I said, walking past her to the kitchen. What you did was cruel. What I did was documentation. I didn't think you'd actually go through with it, she muttered. I turned sharply. Why not? Because I always roll over? Because I'm so nice, you thought I'd let you rot our marriage quietly and call it growth. She flinched, but didn't respond. I grabbed 2 mugs from the cabinet and poured coffee into one. I didn't offer her any. I found the Airbnb, I said. Her head snapped toward me like I'd struck her. I saw the reservation. I saw the initials on the scarf. She tried to play dumb for exactly 3 seconds, then dropped the act. Reed wasn't planned, she said. It just happened. No, Brandon just happened. Reed was planned. He was a search term. A message you sent. A door you reopened. She didn't argue. She sat on the edge of the couch like it hurt to stand. I hadn't talked to him in years. Not since college. But then, he messaged me last spring. Said he saw a photo of us online, that we looked happy, and I realized I wasn't. So you met him again. Slept with him. What else? She looked up at me slowly. I didn't sleep with Reed. I froze. What? We met. Twice. Just to talk. I laughed once, dry and ugly. Don't insult me, Delaney. I'm not. I'm telling the truth. I was going to. We booked the Airbnb. He showed up, but I couldn't go through with it. I wanted to believe her. God help me. I wanted so badly for some part of her to still be decent. But the timeline didn't add up. So why was there a second toothbrush? She blinked. I checked the trash outside the Airbnb. 2 toothbrush boxes, 2 used ones in the bathroom drawer. You stayed overnight. Together. Her face tightened, but not from guilt. From something else. Something I hadn't seen in her since before the affair. Panic. Clark. I didn't spend the night. I stared at her. Waiting. He left before midnight. I stayed for an hour. Then I went home. Then who stayed with you? I asked. Who used the second toothbrush? Her silence was louder than anything she'd said so far. And then she broke. I don't know. My body locked. What do you mean you don't know? I mean I left before him. I told him I couldn't do it. I left the keys under the mat. I figured he'd crash there. But I wasn't there. I swear. And the scarf. I never saw it. He doesn't wear scarves. I didn't say anything. I walked to my backpack, unzipped the side pocket, and pulled out the receipt I printed from the smart lock system. I'd requested access from the Airbnb host, told them I was worried someone broke in. They sent me the data. 2 entries. One at 9:42 p.m. her. One at 3:11 a.m. Unknown user with guest code. I handed it to her. She read it once. Then again. And I watched her face change. From confusion to realization to something very close to horror. What did you do? I asked, suddenly afraid of the answer. She looked at me and whispered, I think Reed gave the code to someone else. Why would he do that? I don't know. Delaney, who would he give it to? Her voice cracked. Someone I used to know. Someone I ended things with a long time ago. I stepped back. You mean there's a third guy? She didn't answer. Are you serious right now? You gave me hell for going through your phone, and you had 3 different men orbiting your secret life like satellites? Tears spilled down her cheeks, silent and slow. It wasn't like that. No? Then what was it, Delaney? Some romantic self-exploration tour? A hall pass through your past? I felt empty, she choked out. I felt like I didn't exist anymore. I was trying to remember who I was before all of this. I stared at her like I'd never seen her before. Before what? Before stability? Before someone loved you so much they erased themselves to keep you happy? She didn't deny it. She just covered her face and cried. And I knew, deep down, that whatever this marriage had been, it was dead. But something else wasn't. Because now there was a stranger with a key code, a forgotten scarf, and a toothbrush that didn't belong to anyone she could name. And I had the feeling this story wasn't done ruining us yet. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Not after everything I'd heard. Not after realizing I'd been living in the orbit of someone who had multiple moons and still claimed to be lost. I sat by the window in Micah's guest room with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders, watching the first frost of the season gather on the car windshields outside. Funny how it all looked so quiet when the inside of your head was on fire. Delaney slept on the couch downstairs. I heard her crying herself to sleep. I didn't go to her. Not out of cruelty, but because I finally understood that some pain isn't mine to soothe anymore. I had done enough of that for both of us. For years. When the sun came up, I made a decision. No revenge. No dramatic send-off. Just closure. I walked downstairs and sat across from her. She looked up, hair messy, eyes red, voice hoarse. "Do you hate me?" she asked softly. "No," I said truthfully. "I don't." She looked surprised, maybe even disappointed. "I think that's what hurts most," I continued. "I don't hate you. I'm not screaming. I'm not throwing things. I'm just done. And that scares me more than anger ever could." She nodded slowly, absorbing the words like medicine with a bitter aftertaste. "I never meant to become this version of myself. I know. But I did." "Yeah," I said. "You did. We didn't cry together. That would have been dishonest. But we sat in silence for a long time, and I think that moment, that quiet between two people who finally dropped the act, was the most real part of our entire marriage. Before she left, she tried one last time. If I fixed everything, if I went to therapy, cut them off, gave you everything you needed, would there still be a chance? I took a long breath. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because I did. "There's a version of me that would have said yes," I said. "But he died somewhere between your 4:17 a.m. alarm and the second toothbrush." She looked down, nodded, and stood up. She left without asking for a hug. And I was grateful for that. It's been 6 months now. I finalized the divorce. I moved cities, got a small apartment overlooking a lake, adopted a dog named Tanner who chews furniture and doesn't care about broken hearts. I started running again, not for punishment, but for the feeling of movement, of breath, of leaving things behind. I even joined a local writing group. Last week, I read a short piece out loud, fictional, supposedly, about a man who watched his wife smile at another man the way she used to smile at him. When I finished, a woman in the front row smiled at me, not with pity, not with flirtation, just with recognition. After the meeting, we talked for 2 hours. Her name is Leah. She paints for a living and talks with her hands. She doesn't ask me about my past, and I don't ask about hers. We just sit beside each other sometimes and breathe like people who know what it's like to lose and still choose to stay soft. And maybe that's what healing really is. Not forgetting, but choosing softness again. Even after someone weaponized your love. Even after you watched the whole house burn down and still planted flowers in the ashes. So no, I didn't get the ending I thought I wanted. But maybe, just maybe, I got the one I needed.